Hi, everybody, and welcome to the September Lymphedema Patient Roundtable hosted by Lympha. My name is Alexa Ercolano. I'm the Marketing and Communications Associate here at Lympha, and I'm a primary lymphedema patient myself. So we are super pumped you're with us tonight, as we are every month. And while everybody's logging on and saying hi in the chat, I'm going to introduce our lovely little quartet here that we have. So first, we've got Angela Jones, a lipolymphedema patient and health coach. We've got Karen Ashforth, certified lymphedema therapist and fibrosis queen. And special guest tonight might be a familiar face to some of you. She is Veronica Seneriz. She is most well known as Lymphy Strong online. She is like a lymphatic community builder extraordinaire, and she's also the patient services director here at, or not here, but at the Lymphatic Education and Resource Network, known as LEARN. And it's through her role with LEARN that she's with us tonight to talk about the importance of community and how you can find community in person, because we're all here virtually, but in-person connection is super important, but it's kind of hard to find that sometimes. So Veronica's going to give us some tips on that. And before we get started, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping. Reminder to please put your questions in the Q&A box so we don't lose track of them throughout the evening. We'll get to the Q&A about halfway through or 45 minutes through our evening here tonight. And gentle reminder, as always, that we are not your doctors, but we are your pals. So we're going to speak from our experience, and we're going to defer to Karen for general medical discussion. You don't want our advice. We are not medical professionals except for Karen. So at the end of the evening, Karen's going to lead us through a lovely relaxation exercise, as she is wont to do, and we love that part of the night. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass it over to Veronica, who's going to give us a little talk real quick about some events happening through LEARN. Take it away,
Veronica. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexa. So good to see Angela and Karen again. I think this is my fourth or fifth time on this panel. It's one of my favorite things to attend in the community. The Lymphedema Roundtable, Patient Roundtable is always jam-packed with information. And I always encourage people who do reach out through the Learn Resource Center that they're looking for an online support group. Tune in every it's the first Tuesday of the month, I think, or second Tuesday of the month, to attend and just have an opportunity to ask questions live is so important. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into some opportunities that the Lymphatic Education and Research Network presents to the community by sharing a very quick PowerPoint. I believe in the power of photos. I could talk till I'm blue in the face, but sometimes just seeing it for yourself just helps so much. Okay, so just a quick introduction of myself. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Veronica Seneriz. I have had primary lymphedema. The kind of lymphedema I have is called lymphedema disguises syndrome. It affects both of my eyes, my vision, and both of my legs. I've had it over 30 years, and I started as the LEARN's first ever patient services director and the first patient on staff to live with the disease and be part of the team. At LEARN, we fight lymphatic diseases through education, research, and advocacy. This is our mission. We actually advocate for all lymphatic diseases across the continuum, whether they're lymphedema, lipedema, lymphatic anomalies, just basically anything under the sun related to the lymphatic system. So tonight we're talking about community, about the power of in-person events. I started my own journey as a patient advocate almost 10 years ago. And the first event I ever attended was a LEARN walk in 2016 in Plano, Texas. Outside of my father, who had lymphedema his entire adult life, and myself, I had never met another human being with lymphedema. I thought we were the only two people in the world that had it, and nobody understood it. I couldn't talk to anybody else other than him that had it. And when I joined the LEARN community initially, at that first walk, I was blown away by, number one, seeing all of the patients that had lymphedema just like me, that were wearing garments just like me, that were looking for information just like me. And we just came together unexpectedly for me. There were a lot of tears shed. It was a very emotional event. And I just thought I would share some of these pictures over the course of 2 years of how I've attended in-person events across the country and just formed friendships and bond. But it wasn't easy. You look at the pictures and you see smiley people and you think, oh, well, she already knew those people or they helped her. No, nothing could have been further from the truth. We're having a walk at the Philadelphia Zoo on October the 6th. And just like that walk in Plano, Texas that I first attended, I want to invite anybody that lives within the Philadelphia tri-state area or Philly tri-state area, which is Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, to come on out for the walk. It is on Sunday, October the 6th, from 7 to 10. And if you do register through Learn, you have a free day. I mean, the rest of the day you can spend at the zoo with your family. These are the chapter chairs, Katie Mulligan and Megan Felter. These are some of the people that have attended and passed. This is the 3rd year that we're doing at the zoo. And if you're new to the walks, I know what you might be thinking. You might say, I have lower extremity lymphedema, or I have an advanced stage of lymphedema. I really can't I'm not comfortable with doing the 5K or the 1 mile. And guess what? So do I. I have lymphedema too. So I asked for extra chairs. I asked for accommodations. We always do our best to accommodate for people with varying levels of ability. If you reach out to me and you have a special concern, feel free to send me an email, and I'll give that out to Alexa. But I just wanted to highlight, one of my good friends that I've known since 2017 through another advocacy program. Her name is Blanche Pepitone. She's had lymphedema for over 50 years. She was born with it and is now in all 4 limbs. She attended the entire event in a scooter and essentially met everyone that was there. I mean, she has a bubbly personality, never met a stranger, and was also the top fundraiser for the event in 2022. So don't feel like your lymphedema should be holding you back, whether you're in a walker or you need access to a scooter for that event. We can certainly ask the zoo to accommodate you. I don't know if how many they have available, but we definitely check in advance. We also have members of the community who have more advanced stage. So if you have feelings of anxiety where you think, well, everybody's going to be looking at me, or, I have more an advanced stage. People from all walks of life, from all over the East Coast attend. I met a family last year that drove 10 hours to bring their child who had a lymphatic anomaly to meet other people with lymphatic disease. Because we, as the adults, like we see in other venues, we're the role models for the kids that have this, for the teens that have this, And so seeing everyone come together in a family-friendly environment, family-oriented activity, it works wonders for everyone. And there's so much laughter, there's so much happiness and joy, and I just wanted to take the time to invite everyone. Last year, over 160 people attended. I guarantee you, if you come to an event, whether it's this one or one we have in the future, or a patient symposium, you will not leave having not met anyone. Everyone is so friendly, and it's amazing. We have patient stories that are shared. We have vendor booths where Lympha Press and other vendors, share great information about their products. You have the opportunity to ask questions. You just don't walk away alone. You may show up by yourself, but I guarantee you will leave with new friends. And I'm going fast because I want to give the opportunity for other topics too. I don't want to hog the whole show, but other opportunities for in-person events that come through Learn as a World Lymphedema Day events. Look for a chapter in your area that's going to be hosting something. Ohio State University is going to be having something. We have the University of Tennessee. The chapter chairs from those two are already kind of have stuff in the works for symposiums. You think March is far away, but we're already planning for events for next year. And so I really, whether you're on Instagram or social, look out for these announcements on events happening in your area so that you can celebrate World Lymphedema Day if you have lymphedema. Other things that in person, ARPA-H is a research opportunity. Various clinicians across the country's researchers are looking for patients to participate. Look out for those announcements from Learn, either on social or through our e-blast. You can sign up for our newsletter for information on that. And then last but not least, the Learn Resource Center is proudly sponsored by Lympha Press. We offer a support line. It's the first 1-800 number, to my knowledge, in the United States for patients with lymphedema. It has links to our Ask the Experts, Find a Therapist, and our Learn Symposium. But of course, nothing beats, we have our Find a Therapist, but we have our own expert therapists on the panel. So I will go ahead and hand it back over to Alexa.
Thank you so much, Veronica. I think community and meeting other people who truly understand what it's like to live with lymphedema, it really makes a difference. It's like a puzzle piece coming together when you can meet someone in person and be like, oh my gosh, I love your compression, or oh my gosh, like having that little bit. I was at a Cracker Barrel a few weeks ago and I saw a woman wearing a compression sleeve, and I was trying with my mind to get her to look at my leg and see my garment, and of course it wasn't happening. So I actually ended up approaching her and I said, hey, like, I couldn't help but notice, your compression, like, we're matching, I wear this too. And it was a neat little moment, and she said we were sisters of the sleeve, which I loved. I thought that was such a sweet way to put it. So any of those kinds of little moments of connection are so valuable. And I'm glad you mentioned the Learn chapters. They're international. So I recommend people definitely check out the Learn website and see if there's a chapter near you. That's a great way to find local events. Angela or Karen, do you have any ways that you find community in person that other patients that are listening in could look for?
I think that there are definitely a number of support groups in different communities. And so searching for that is a great thing. And if you don't have one, you might consider starting one, because a lot of patients and therapists have banded together to create groups. And I know that during COVID, everything became virtual. But now we've got much more in-person resources happening.
I've met several people through my therapist that didn't know about the pump. They didn't know about various things. And so I actually have passed the link to this roundtable to several people. So
I love that. I know, and I think social media in general too is such a powerful way to meet people. There's someone in the audience, Evie. She lives in California, and we've never met in person, but we voice message all the time. We met through Instagram, and she met someone in Canada, Hardeep, who's also really big on Instagram, and they've met in person because of connecting virtually first. So there's so many ways that we can sort of connect and make these, bring these into the real world and make that effort. So it's really valuable stuff. And there's Evie in the chat saying, woo, Limpy besties. It's so special. So
I wanted to
yeah,
add just
go ahead.
Karen's comment. Years ago, I have primary lymphedema, as I mentioned, but years ago, I stumbled across a support group that was based in Houston, Texas, where I used to live, and it was the Memorial Hermann Cancer Center, Lindy Cancer Center, and the description specifically said, it was for secondary lymphedema for cancer survivors. Well, I had primary. That didn't stop me. I decided, well, I'm going to crash it this one time. I'm going to ask them if I can come. And if they kick me out, they kick me out. So I showed up, and I, when I came to introduce myself, I said, well, I have primary. I said, but I've had lymphedema for, at the time it was 25 years. And they said, wow, we've never met anybody that's had the longest, anyone's had lymphedema here is 5 years. How is it possible that you've had it over 20 years? And I said, well, is it okay if I keep coming to, even though I don't have secondary? Sure. So I ended up going to that support group for 2 years, even though I didn't have most of them had BCRL, which is breast cancer related lymphedema. So don't be shy about crashing a support group.
I love that. We do have to sometimes sort of carve out a space for ourselves, and it works, you find community, you make community where you can find it. So I love that advice, Veronica. That's awesome. Since it's back to school season for a lot of people, I thought, I love a theme. So I thought, how can we bring that theme into the roundtable tonight? And in our recent survey that we put out, we got a lot of feedback about some people wanting sort of a back to basics about lymphedema treatment and care and kind of a refresher on that. So I thought, why not put our lovely CLT Karen on the spot, if she could give us sort of like a quick overview, because last month we did an overview on lymphedema and the lymphatic system, which was awesome. And I think having one about lymphedema treatment and sort of a high level view of kind of what's out there, what people can have in their toolbox might be helpful, because people might be tuning in who are new to this whole lymphedema life, or maybe they're old hats at it and might have their own tips and lessons learned to share in the chat that we can talk about afterwards. So what you got for us, Karen?
Well, I would say that the place to start is to talk to your doctor. And I love all the resources that Learn has, because there's all kinds of information that you can print out and bring to your doctor if they don't know what lymphedema or lipedema is. And also a great thing that Learn has is a resource on how to find a lymphedema therapist. And I'm hoping that maybe Veronica could drop that link into the chat, because it's a whole page with all kinds of resources, because you don't want to treat lymphedema all by yourself. You want to find an expert to help you. And it's great to get support, and it's great to utilize online resources. But I've had a lot of patients who've tried to do it yourself, and you wouldn't want to do surgery on yourself, for instance. I mean, it's a very specialized thing, and so is lymphedema. So here's the overview of lymphedema treatment. Lymphedema treatment started back, 60 years ago or so in Germany at the Foldy Clinic, is where it really got rolling and famous. And they developed the core treatment for lymphedema, and it consists of the reduction phase, which is where it's kind of like a boot camp where you're trying to get that swelling down, and then the maintenance phase. So the reduction phase in Germany is very intense. People go to the clinics, they live there for a month, they have therapy every single day. In the United States, we don't have socialized medicine, so it's a little bit different. But ideally, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, having daily therapy, or at the very least a few times a week therapy, is a great way to keep the momentum going with the reduction. So what is this therapy consist of? Well, classical lymphedema treatment is called complete decongestive therapy, or CDT, and it consists of a type of massage called manual lymphatic drainage, which can be quite light, but if a patient has a lot of hardened or fibrotic tissue, then it might be a little heavier. So that's the first component, is the manual lymphatic drainage, which is initially done by a therapist, but patients learn how to do their own. The second component is compression. And in the reduction phase, where we're in boot camp, the classical treatment is bandaging. And that's where you're using many layers of foam and batting and these special short stretch bandages. They're not ACE wraps. They're a woven bandage that doesn't have elastic in it, that creates almost like a cast that really helps that body reduce. Because if you're moving around in that bandage, then the muscle action is going to push against the bandage, and it will help to move that swelling out of the swollen area. So far we've got manual lymphatic drainage and compression. Then the third aspect is meticulous skin care, because people with lymphedema are 71 times more likely to develop an infection than those who don't have lymphedema. So learning about the skin and how to make sure that the skin is taken care of properly, that is very, very critical. The fourth component is exercise, because the lymph system does not have a central pump like the heart. We rely on the little tiny muscles inside the lymph vessels, as well as the skeletal muscles, to move the lymph. And the way that happens with the skeletal muscles is, as the muscles contract, it's helping to pump the lymph from the swollen area into the lymph nodes, where it can be processed and recirculated. So those are the four components. Now, arguably, there's a fifth component, which is education. And that's very, very important, because I feel like education is power. And when I teach my patients about their lymphatic system and why it's important to treat and why it's important to prevent progression, then I feel like I'm transferring tools to my patients that are going to empower them to influence the rest of their life. So in the decongestive or boot camp phase, the treatment is done primarily from the therapist to the patient, with the idea that the patient is then going to be able to manage their own symptoms using their own massage and compression, but maybe not bandages, maybe more compression garments, as well as continuing the skincare and the exercise. And it doesn't mean that you say goodbye to the lymphedema therapist, because I encourage my patients to come back for tune-ups and rechecks on a regular basis. I would say at least every year, because people's conditions can change and needs can change. The compression garments can stretch out, and you might need new garments, especially if you're in custom garments. So that's kind of a bird's eye view of basic treatment. Now, beyond that, there are many, many other things. And I'm going to suggest, Alexa, that we talk about that next time, because there's a whole world of treatment out there, which includes pneumatic compression pumps, as well as other techniques for fibrosis. And I could just go on and on, but I think I'll stop right here. So if anyone has any questions about that, just drop them in the chat and we can clarify.
Thank you, Karen, for that Lymphedema Treatment 101 course. That was wonderful. We got somebody in the chat. Lori says, it's very difficult. I'm homebound and can't get to a therapist. Unfortunately, they can't come to me. What do you suggest, or how can patients who are at home and don't have access to a therapist, what are things you can do at home that are accessible to do? Elevate, obviously, but is there any other kind of little tricks to help out your swelling?
Well, again, this is where Learn has so many resources in terms of options. But I would say that there are therapists out there who do telehealth that are skilled in lymphedema. And some home health agencies actually do have lymphedema therapists on staff. So I would try to seek that out if you can. And then certainly talking to the Learn experts. Again, the very best thing is to have in-person treatment, but I understand if you can't get out, you got to do whatever you can do.
Thanks, Karen. And yes, we can't stress that resource page enough. Veronica had stuck it in the chat, and it'll be in the replay email too. And if you're watching the recording, it'll be made available. So you'll have that and bookmark it, save it. You'll be visiting it a lot. It's a wealth of information. Yep, Brianna said in the chat, vibration plate is helpful. That's another tool. We talked a little bit about those last month, and we can add that to the list for next month. Rosie said that she's interested in hearing about surgery options for leg lymphedema next month. And I'm actually getting surgery in November, and I'll be coming to you all live from Cleveland Clinic for our November roundtable. So we'd love to talk about that too. So we'll add that to the list for next month also. That's always a hot topic. Speaking of different treatments, Angela Jones, she is a self-proclaimed her own guinea pig when it comes to figuring out what works for her, because a lot of lymphedema is trial and error. What works for some people doesn't work for everybody. So we kind of have to figure these things out as we go along. And Angela is a pro at that, and she's recently found something that's working for her, and she offered to talk a little bit about it with, you know, our obvious typical disclaimer that this is what works for Angela, and you always want to talk with your doctor or your lymphedema therapist before trying something new. But we're excited to hear about her experience lately with, is it infrared heat?
Far infrared.
Far infrared heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My doctor and I have a special relationship, and the relationship is she tells me not to, and I said, but I have to. So I have problems with my right knee, has very little cartilage left in it, and I'm trying so hard to avoid a knee replacement. So I actually have a sauna, a far infrared sauna. And always we hear, and I'll add to the disclaimer, it is not for everybody, but always we hear, you know, how heat affects lipedema or lymphedema. But I decided about 3 weeks ago, I'm going to get into this sauna and I'm going to see what happens, because I am tired of my knee hurting. So I got into the sauna and I was amazed. I've done it for 3 weeks for an hour every morning, 150 degrees, which is definitely not for everybody, but I've seen the circumference of both thighs go down, both legs go down, and I've lost a lot of water. I prefer to think it's not water weight, because when I drink up all the water, it doesn't come back. So, and I've seen the numbers on my scale go down. I have a lot more energy. And it's interesting to me. I wrote to Karen. I said, Karen, do you know anybody who does this? Because it's just what we hear not to do. So it's not for everybody, but I intend to, and my doctor and I are really, you know, talking back and forth with what's happening now. How does it look now? How do you feel? And so we're just really kind of keeping up. My daughter said to me, take pictures. You got to have something to show at the end whenever you stop doing this. So my experience, though, like I said, has been the circumference of both legs is decreased significantly. Even that hurting knee feels a lot better. And my weight has come down. So I'm really pleased with it, and I'm interested in seeing. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it. I guess just until I don't, but I'll continue to do it and just kind of keep notes of what's happening, how I feel, how my extremities are doing, how the weight's doing. So it's been, but it's what I use as a far infrared sauna.
And that's become very, very popular. And I would say, Angela, that I am so thrilled that it's working for you. And there's a number of benefits that far infrared saunas have, including detoxification and anti-inflammatory benefits. So my guess is that you may be experiencing both of those. I want to just emphasize, though, that you know, with lymphedema, some people can eat salt. Some people, you have salt and you blow up. Same thing with heat. Some people can handle a little bit of heat. Some people, even just a little degree, and they blow up. So before you run out and buy one, you may want to just see, how do you do with a hot bath or a hot shower or a hot day? Do you get more inflated, more swollen? And if that's the case, then I would be very cautious and maybe even discourage you from pursuing that. But I just told Angela before we started, I have a far infrared sauna. I absolutely love it, but I haven't been able to use it for a few months because it's been over 100 degrees every day here in California where I live. And I'm looking forward to the fall weather cooling things down so I can resume it again.
It's so interesting because right now I'm in Arizona, so the temperature is running anywhere from 109 to 115. I hate outside. I will not go out there, but the 150-degree sauna is fine.
What is so I'm kind of confused at how you have a sauna at home. What is it, like a device, or like what exactly is it that you're using?
It's an actual sauna that I
Oh.
sit in. Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
sit in on a chair, a stool. I sit in it, and then I set it for a temperature and a time. It only goes like 30 minutes at a time, so I'll do 30 minutes and then I'll pump it up another 30 minutes.
Wow.
So,
Is it
and I,
outside or inside?
Oh,
Go ahead.
I actually got the idea too because my daughter bought a sauna blanket. And I was real close to getting a sauna blanket. And I thought, why would you do that? You have a sauna. That doesn't make any sense. So.
And I have a sauna blanket and I love it. It's like a vinyl sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And you have to put a liner around yourself or wear light clothing because I tell you, you sweat like crazy. But I feel so good. I feel so relaxed. And I've had a few of my patients who haven't had, heat related swelling, try it out, and they just get very relaxed. So there's some great benefits to it, and there's evidence behind it. And yeah, and for the right person, it's the right tool.
I was gonna ask, is it, Angela, do you have it inside your home or outside?
Inside, when I'm in it's here in Arizona. So when I
Okay.
go to North Carolina, I don't have one. It's here in Arizona.
You know, I've been wondering, Karen, about this popular, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, but there's a popular gym chain, kind of spreading across the country that uses infrared, gym rooms where you go in and you either spin or you actually work on exercise equipment while you're surrounded by infrared light. And I've been considering trying that, but I hadn't seen any chatter on the Facebook groups or Instagram, but I haven't really had my ear to the street on that either. I was wondering what your thoughts are about trying that.
I have never heard of that before. That's a new thing to me. So you might want to talk to the gym and see if they have any precautions or contraindications, because I know that for things like that, sometimes that will exist because there's a liability factor. I've heard of hot yoga, but this is actually a light. This is more than just heat. This is actually using an infrared light, which is very therapeutic in a lot of ways. So report back. I want to hear.
I will, because I've considered walking in and asking for a 7-day pass, like just saying, I have this chronic illness and, I don't want to get this full membership if, it's going to be contraindicated to my swelling, but at the same time, it's infrared light inside the whole room while the gym equipment is in there. And then supposedly there's a monitor that tells you, with the virtual instructor that leads a class, and you follow the instructions on that.
is this the same as, sorry, Sandy asked if she uses a red laser device. Is that the same as what you're talking about with the far infrared light?
Lasers can be different wavelengths. So there's red light, there's near infrared, there's far infrared, And so different wavelengths have different benefits.
Good to know. Yeah, and Evie had said in the chat too, during Angela's story that she uses a jacuzzi, and she says, I was always told never to go in a jacuzzi, but there's one occasion I went in and allowed me to control the temperature. I adjusted the water to room temp and noticed my leg was softer and squishier. I don't use the jacuzzi often, but was delightfully surprised at how my leg reacted to the jacuzzi. So again, there's that thing we've been saying, how some of us can tolerate that, and some of us that's like, ooh, no. I am one of those that cannot go in the hot water or have salt. I mean, I still eat the salt, but drink a lot of water. But yeah, everybody's so different, which is crazy. And we had another person say that they've been using a vibration plate for just over a week and noticed reduced swelling. They sit on a chair and put their feet on it, not ready to stand on it yet. They have some arthritis in their knees and can't stand long, but they're going to work their way up. And yes, vibration plates are like super popular. I see them everywhere in the community. Very beneficial for a lot of people, which is great.
I also recently I have a vibration plate that I've bought for myself for Christmas last year, and it came with the matching gun. And the gun had been in the closet for months, and recently, as of the last week, my CLT last year had used a gun on I really think that the part around my right ankle, which is where I've had lymphedema the longest since 1994, is probably already fibrotic. And I just used the gun around my ankle area on the bottom of the ball of my foot and my heel. Oh my gosh, it makes my tissues softer. I feel so relaxed. I have, reduced pain. Obviously, it's no cure. I have to redo it, but using both the vibration plate, even just sitting on the vibration plate loosens up my hips. And I just find it so relaxing to use those adjunct tools in the toolbox for lymphedema.
Yeah, I love adjunct tools because that's what a lot of it is just finding these little things, and we can be very DIY too. I mean, when it comes to even elevating, I always call it like constructing my elevation station, and I've used all kinds of crazy things just to get my limbs up and elevated. So we're a crafty bunch, and it helps. Valerie asked, what's the vibration plate? Anyone want to, I mean, it's basically what, like just a platform that you can put your limb on, or you can stand on, and it vibrates at different frequencies. Is that right? And
Yes.
pulses, yeah. So there's a lot of different ones. Catherine, who's usually on here, she's like a big fan of her vibration plate, and she's talked about it before a lot. But we'll definitely add that to the topic list for next month when we do our adjunct tools and advanced treatment tips. Go ahead, Karen.
There's a lot of evidence for vibration.
Yeah, just gets it all moving.
I wish I
Veronica,
could
you're
turn
gonna
my laptop around because I have the vibration plate like right there, but
Oh, and we've got a special guest who just came on, Dave DiBacco. You guys know him if you've been on the last couple of months. He's our Renaissance man at Lympha Press. So just in time, we're talking about different tools and treatment tips. So if anybody has any pump questions specifically, Dave is like the guy to ask. So he'll be in the Q&A box and in the chat too, to answer any of those kinds of questions. We're going to also get into the Q&A soon because we're starting to get a lot of great questions coming in. But before that, I wanted to ask our panelists and people in the chat too, continuing with our little back to school theme, what's one of like the biggest lessons you've learned in your lymphedema lives, like living with this or treating it? In Karen's case, like what are some of the main lessons you've learned that you'd impart on somebody else who might be kind of new to this curriculum? Go ahead, Veronica.
I would say that the biggest lesson that I've learned personally is that this journey is a marathon, not a sprint. And that the obstacles and the issues that you may have 1 to 3 years into having it may change at the 10-year mark, at the 15-year mark, at the 20-year mark. I know sometimes it's hard to envision that, but some of the things that worked initially may not work later down the road. And so it's so important to stay on top of that education, as Karen mentioned. And I remind patients, fellow patients, that for me, the best thing is to go back to CDT. I'm doing it annually now. I used to do it every other year or every couple of years. And now I have to go back every year to get it done. And I have to make time. It's time consuming to do it. But for me, there's just no replacement for my CLT for that once a year, for at least 4 weeks to get back, in the swing of things. And then of course, I manage on my own the rest of the year.
Love that. And speaking of CLTs, Nazreen Starner just popped on, and she's another certified lymphedema therapist. Nazreen, we're talking in the spirit of back to school season, our biggest lessons learned in our lymphedema lives, whether as patients or as therapists. So Veronica was just sharing. Do you want to go on the spot? Say one of your lessons learned as a CLT?
Oh, sure. Hi, Veronica. I haven't seen you since NLN. Nice to see you. Let me see. So as a therapist, and I would say in case any therapists are watching, sometimes, and I think I wrote this to our group yesterday, I have made many mistakes, lots of trial, lots of error. So as a therapist, if you're watching this, or if you're a patient and maybe your things aren't going exactly how you would like them to go, try again. So I would say just be persistent. It's not an exact science. So what I would say, what I've learned a lot is that one size doesn't fit all with this. And so what works for one person might not work for another. And what your therapist might think would work doesn't always work right away. The other thing that I think is a big thing I've learned is that just because when you'll see one of us, we'll say, oh, try A, B, and C, and you're good, and bye. I think more so we have to manage the lymphatic load, which can be affected by weather, by stress, by diet, by so many things, activity levels. And so if we tell you just to be in one garment, it may not work every single day. So sometimes kind of switching what you're doing based on your needs or activities. So sometimes I'll have people who will say, oh, I'm going to a wedding, I'm not going to wear my garment. That's your choice. But then maybe the next day you're going to have to wear a more compressive garment. You may have to pump more. You may have to do more exercise. And you may just have to manage your lymphatic load a little differently the next day. So I think that's something big that I learned, because I would put people in garments and say, you're good to go. And then they started a new medication and then things didn't work how I would hope they would have. So yeah, that's probably it.
Awesome. Angela.
One of the things, and I've been doing this for about a year now, was I had to redefine. I used to look at the lymphedema and the lipedema as an illness, and I found out that my mindset goes to sick. And so I changed it to manageable condition. That works for me, because the minute I go illness, oh my God, what am I going to do? So it really messed with my mental, my mental approach to it. So the best thing for me that I've found for the past year is to just change how I define it for me.
I love that perspective, Angela. And that's a hard lesson. I think we all learn at some point eventually. That was a turning point for me too, because I used to be really resentful of my lymphedema. And I used to feel like this is a curse or a life sentence. And, I just didn't want to even treat it or do what I needed to do to it, because I didn't even want to deal with it. I didn't want to touch it, look at it, anything. And then once I reframed it in my mind as like, look, I'm only hurting myself by not taking care of it. I'm the only one who's going to put my garments on. I'm the only one who's going to watch the salt or drink a little more water if I'm going to have that salty pizza, which I do anyway. But, it really is up to us, which is a hard pill to swallow, but it's also a helpful one, and so once we kind of reframe it, like Angela said, and approach it from that mindset of like, this is manageable. I mean, we just had a lymphedema patient When in the Paralympics, Didi Oko got a bronze medal in the women's 100 meter with her compression garment on. Less than 15 seconds took her across the finish line, which is incredible. I mean, we can really do so much, you know, living with this. It's just oftentimes we need that mindset shift. So thanks for bringing that up, Angela. I love that. So, okay. Oh yeah, go ahead.
To Angela's point, I actually had to go to what's known as cognitive behavioral therapy. I was in sessions for almost 3 months with a mental health professional that help. There are ways to help, you know, if you can't do it on your own, there are ways to retrain your thinking. And they have various exercises that you do mentally. And it really, I think that was the #1 thing that changed my life initially. And Angela's just spot on. Very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. That is a great source of therapy. And we had Rosie in the chat who said what helps her is to do some form of exercise for at least 30 minutes a day. And she does a variety of exercises to keep from getting bored. And another thing she says, and we love this, she says, I highly recommend LymphaPress compression pump. I exercise in the morning, use the pump for 1 hour in the afternoon, and then 1.5 hours at night. And then Lisa also chimed in and said she uses her pump twice a day for 1 hour each. But the relief is only temporary. And I think that's where we're talking about this whole tool set, this whole like suite of things that we have to do. It all kind of comes together to help support us in our lymphedema. But you're right, like we have to kind of keep doing all these different things to sort of keep the ball in the air, so to speak. And Sheila just got approved for a LymphaPress and she's looking forward to learning how to use it best. So we recommend you tune into next week's Lipolymphedema Patient Roundtable because Dave's going to be on it along with Marsha Witt, who's a patient that he helped get a LymphaPress. So they're going to be talking about the whole process, start to finish, and kind of overview of how to use it. So, oh, and Brina said, I've done CBT and DBT, which are the 2 different therapies we were just talking about, for years. It's done wonders for me. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. We loved that. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to share about lessons learned? Because you talk to a lot of patients in your line of work, and anything you've observed or just even yourself living with these kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, I really try not to say too much because, as you just said, pumps are only a small piece of the pie. So I try to just kind of be a fly on the wall. You know, next week, like you said, on the lipedema roundtable, I'll be talking a lot. So, you know, you've seen me kind of stay quiet on these, but next week I'll be chirping a lot. So tune into that. But, you know, I definitely interact with a lot of people that are going through some stuff, dealing with this, trying to manage this. And, you know, I always just try to spread positivity, and I'm happy to help provide one tool in the toolbox to kind of keep things under control. So, you know, keep on keeping on. And this is a great resource that LymphaPress offers, these roundtables. You know, I'm really honored to be a part of them. And, you know, like I say, even if I don't really have much to always share, it's an honor to be here with everybody. So, you know, my line's always open. If anybody wants to reach out, if they have any questions, I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Thanks, Dave. And we love having you here. I know that you like to be more in the shadows when you're on, but you're such a great resource and a wealth of information in yourself. So we're always happy to have you. Wendy just shared in the chat that she just saw a lymphedema specialist at University of Penn, Dr. Zhang, who actually, Dr. Zhang, if it's the same Dr. Zhang, she was on our roundtable last fall, I want to say. So we have to check our YouTube channel for that. But Wendy says she was amazing. I was hoping to start lymphedema therapy again, but I had a recent scan and it showed many swollen nodes in my groin, pelvis, and thigh. Met with a surgical oncologist yesterday, ordered a PET, and will biopsy the node that lights up the most on September 20th. Hopefully all will be well, and then I will be able to get the all clear to start therapy, and then she hopes to make her way to Cleveland Clinic. Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed for you, Wendy. And Nazarene's in Cleveland, so you've got a friend in the area who's going to be rooting for you. Karen had to hop off, so we won't have our little relaxation exercise at the end, but we do have a slew of questions that have been popping up as we've been talking. And obviously we're not going to have a chance to get to all of these. We're going to make note next month. as always, we're going to try and address those that we don't get time to do. I'm going to ask if anyone on the panel sees any in particular that they want to jump in on in our remaining 10 minutes here. Anything that they feel. Yeah, Nazreen, go ahead.
So one of the questions that's on there is that I do believe they said that their leg is much worse on one side versus the other, and if that's typical. As a therapist, I do typically see with lymphedema that people do have one side presents a little bit worse than the other, if not a lot worse. Sometimes people won't even notice they're having any swelling in one leg versus the other at all. Where I do notice people maybe have a little bit more symmetric swelling would be if it's maybe starting from an origin of maybe more of a medical issue. You know, if it's medication related or cardiac or kidney, maybe you'll notice a little bit more of the swelling to look the same. But typically with lymphedema, we do notice one side to be a little bit more swollen than the other. And then there was another question on there when they were talking about how their home clinic doesn't really do, if I'm mistaken, do complete decongestive therapy. And I'm so sorry for that. And it's hard as a patient to have to advocate for yourself, but you know, sometimes the therapists in your area, because this is kind of an evolving field, people in the higher ups in the hospital might not realize what a lymphedema patient needs. And so, you know, sometimes you just have to really ask your therapist, and they may be willing to do it. Sometimes, you know, they might need that reassurance from their staff that insurance will cover the visits. And I've never run across an issue with getting visits covered for lymphedema because, you know, there is obviously a concern there and an impairment that is a medical diagnosis. So sometimes it's just that insurance has less visits. So, but they could always work with you if your insurance does cover it to kind of find what could help you. But I think honestly, just talking to your therapist and just having that honest discussion that, hey, you know, I've gone to forums and listened, and this is what's recommended, and see if they're willing to help you. And I know that's not an easy conversation to have to do, and I wish you didn't have to do that. But as far as follow-up treatments, that is how it works at a lot of hospital-based clinics, because with therapy, you have to have a goal that you're going towards. So if you can ask your therapist to set goals such as my compression will fit, and maybe that you're getting fit for follow-up compression, then that could be a long-term goal that they're working on at 3 months out. Because or else it's kind of hard as a therapist to justify with insurance why we're bringing people back at 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be. So I would always set long-term goals for my patients as part of my treatment plan. And that did seem to help with getting them back in the door.
Yeah, and again, like the resource link that Veronica shared for the Learn Resource Center is a great thing to kind of share with your lymphedema therapist or even your doctor. Like I was at my gynecologist recently and I told her, look, like if you see any kind of swelling, because I've never had at my lymphedema clinic anyone ask questions or talk about genital lymphedema, and that's on my radar. And so I told my gynecologist, a completely unrelated care provider who has no real experience with lymphedema, that this is a thing to, hey, can you look out for this, or if you see anything or whatever. And she said, okay, like I don't know anything about lymphedema, but I'll do some reading and I'll keep an eye out. And if we see anything, we'll learn together. And so you have to have those kind of conversations. And I know it's so difficult and it's so daunting, but there are a lot of resources out there for self-advocating, which are really important. And even sharing if you have like a patient portal with your healthcare provider, sometimes you can upload documents in there, so you can share some resources in there too, and be that patient that's really kind of standing up and saying like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, I need you to help me with this too, and be aware. So it takes a little gumption sometimes, but we've got that, and we've all got your backs if you need a little push with that too.
Yeah, you know, I know it's a lot harder said than done. But if you do have, I just shared the link to the Learn Centers of Excellence. That list has grown since 2019 to now 62 sites around the world. Now, granted, most of them are in major metropolitan areas. Cleveland Clinic, Penn, both of them are centers of excellence. But yeah, if you can share the list with whoever you're visiting, saying, these centers all do this. This is a real thing. This is not in my head. Lymphatics is a bona fide science. Lymphology is a sector of medicine. It definitely takes a lot of self-advocacy sometimes to try to turn the corner.
Thanks, Veronica. Angela, you were unmuted. Did you want to say anything, or are you just unmuted?
Just unmuted.
Just unmuted. Okay.
I didn't even realize I was unmuted.
That's okay. I didn't know if you were signaling you wanted to say something. Wow, so much great info. We've got 5 minutes left. So if there's any other question any of our panelists are seeing that can be answered within those 5 minutes, or we can save it till next month with the rest of the questions. But it's great discussion as always tonight. Really, really great. And I love this emphasis on finding resources, finding community, like what Veronica said earlier about even putting, like, wedging your way into places, you know, making your own community. Sometimes we got to do that. So there's a lot of resources.
Groups.
Yeah.
I've crashed support groups. I've asked people early on in my Facebook group that I used to run in the when Facebook Live was a thing before Instagram Live became available. I don't know if you remember, Alexa, when I used to do that. I used to ask people to speak in my group, and they're like, well, I've never done a Facebook Live. And I'm like, you're about to learn. So there's no barrier, no ceiling that, you know, just try. I mean, and all people can do is say no.
Yeah.
You know, say no, move on to the next person. Somebody's bound to, you know, knock on this door, keep on knocking until somebody opens that door wide open for you. I was going to say something about the knee surgery.
Sure.
I'm not a CLT or a health professional, but over the course of monitoring Facebook groups and administering a Facebook group for almost 10 years, I can tell you that a lot of patients have anecdotally shared they've had successful knee surgeries on the lymphedema limb, but the ones that had the best output coordinated their surgery with their CLT and had massage done afterwards, or had their doctor order a post-op treatment with their CLT. And so MLD was done. I think the incision has to actually close first, but soon thereafter start that treatment with the CLT, and there have been oodles of people have had it. Now, of course, everybody's different, but for the most part, I've seen dozens and dozens of people go through TKA, or whatever they call it, the knee surgery part.
Yeah, I think every month have a question about knee surgery. So I definitely encourage you, because the person asked that they need knee surgery, and they asked if anyone had a knee replacement with lymphedema. If you go onto the lymphedema channel on YouTube, look at our back catalog of webinars and roundtables. There's a lot of info in there too, to kind of dig through. But yeah, that's a common thing. And Veronica's right. You have to work with your lymphedema therapist to kind of alleviate my brain, it's the end of the night, not the word I'm looking for, not alleviate, but sort of mitigate, that's the word, the swelling. But Nazreen, I saw you raising your hand.
So with knee replacements, the only thing I was going to say is check with your doctor beforehand to see if you're allowed to do CDT bandaging right after surgery, because I have checked with a lot of the orthopedic surgeons, and that helps tremendously. And a lot of the doctors will let you get into garments pretty darn quick afterwards, as long as they're not going to, shear the incision at all. But a lot of them just have patients bandaged for a week, and then they can get back into garments. So that works out really well. The other thing just to keep in mind after knee surgeries, I don't mean to take up too much time, but if they put you in a knee immobilizer right afterwards, and I'm sorry if you guys talked about this already, but the straps on that can be really tight and sometimes can be constricting on a lymphedema limb. So just be careful if somebody starts to feel that they're having like an abnormal amount of discomfort, you probably are. And sometimes you might need to get those straps adjusted, because I have had people before who've had lymphedema who, you know, they don't realize and they strap them down really tight. And then somebody who has lymphedema, their swelling is going to be different than just regular post-op swelling, and they can't tolerate those straps on an immobilizer to be so tight. So it's just something to kind of keep an eye out for.
Thank you. That's good advice. We are at 9 o'clock Eastern time, which means we got to go to bed, everybody. We got to close out. So all of your questions that we didn't get to, which are a lot, we're going to save them. We're going to try and get to them next month. October 8th is our next roundtable. We're here every second Tuesday of every month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you can't make it live, we still encourage you to register, so that way you get the email with the recording once I have it edited and uploaded to our YouTube channel. We also upload them to our podcast. If you look up Lympha Press podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, you should be able to find them there, including the lipedema roundtables. And we're just so stoked you're with us tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you, Veronica, for joining us again. We love having you. Thanks, Dave and Nazreen, for coming in. We're so glad you guys made it, and everybody watching. We love that you're here with us tonight and spending this hour with us each month. And we look forward to seeing you in October. Oh my gosh, time is flying. Everybody have a great night. Stay healthy and well, and wear your compression. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.